So March wasn't as packed as February, but honestly, I think we got more quality over quantity this time around. I've got 11 albums that really stood out to me. Now you might notice some big names missing, such as Spirit Box, Alien Weaponry, Bloody Wood, Imperial Triumphant, and Death Haven. They're probably topping other people's lists, but they didn't really click with me. Most of these picks are albums I already reviewed on my channel, except for two really great discoveries I found through Hammer Heart Metal Reviews. And yeah, there are some Greek metal bands because if you know me, I'm a big fan of Greek metal. There's something about their sound I really like. I've got these listed alphabetically in the video description, but watch the video to see how I rank them. I will be counting them down from 11 to number 1. Number 11 is Whitechapel with Hymns in Dissonance. This is a deathcore band, and even though they're not one of my favorite genres, it's a deathcore band I really like. They returned to a heavier sound after being a little more experimental with the previous two albums. It's their 9th studio album. Some key tracks are Prisoner 666. This one has big riffs, powerful drums, and their old school heavy sound. I also like the title track. It sounds like this big wall of heaviness. It had both deep guttural vocals and those hardcore vocals. Then it was Diabolic Slumber that had some traditional metal guitar playing and some quieter, suspenseful moments. Overall, it just makes the list. The only negative was that there was this sameness throughout the album, but if you listen to the album from front to back, you can enjoy it for what it is. It's just a heavy, in-your-face album. Coming in number 10 is Destruction with Birth of Malice. It's the 16th album from the legendary German thrash metal band. They give you what you expect. It's a solid thrash metal album. Featured one cover song of Accept's Fast as a Shark, and that's appropriate as that was one of the earliest examples of thrash metal. There are a few other good songs I liked, such as No Kings, No Masters, that's filled with riffs and an old school thrash metal sound. There was Scumbag Human Race. That's one of the songs I felt was the most memorable on the album. And the song Cyber Warfare had some lyrics that were relevant for the current state of the world. And there was Evil Never Sleeps, a mid-paced thrasher with some evil sounding vocals. Overall, it's a solid thrash metal album, not contender for best thrash metal album of the year. There's another album that will or might qualify for that. But for now, it's just cracking the top 10. Is Nightstalker with Return from the Point of No Return. This is the first Greek band I have, and I discovered them on my Discovering Metal Band series from other countries, and I think I covered them in the first episode on Greece. This band is labeled as a stoner rock band, but I think of them more as heavy rock with psychedelic elements. That's a good way to describe them. The vocals of the lead singer are very distinctive. They kind of sound a little bit like Ozzy Osbourne at times. The album has a few good songs, such as Dust. That's the album opener, features a hard-driving drum beat and thick and heavy guitar riffs. There's the song Heavy Trippin', which is appropriately named because it has a psychedelic sound and heavy riffs, slightly reminiscent of Black Sabbath. Another song is called Uncut. This one has a really cool drumming. They do these cool, like, triplets. That's really cool. Overall, really cool, heavy, psychedelic rock album. I think you should check it out because I haven't really heard any other channels talk about this band. Number 8 is Dragonskull with Chaos Fire Vengeance. This is one of the bands I discovered through Hammer Heart Metal Reviews. They're another Greek metal band. They play epic, traditional heavy metal. I would compare them to bands like Manowar, Gravedigger, or that German band Brainstorm, which I talked about a few weeks ago. It's a mix of traditional heavy metal, a little bit of power metal, some occasional thrash elements, but the songs can be catchy as well. The vocals are very big and powerful. At the same time, they're melodic. Some standout tracks are Skull Crusher, which is just a killer track. Another one I like was War Drums, which is another very powerful song. And another song, which was the first song, I believe, called Brethren. It had like these nice layers of vocals and just a very like epic sound. So if you like that big fantasy type of heavy metal, like I said, Manowar and the other bands. Or if you like Greek metal, because they have that typical sound where everything is just very like big and epic, and it's really cool. The lyrics are fantasy oriented, so if you like that, definitely check it out. Okay, number 7 is Spiritworld with Heldorado. It's one of those bands, mixes lots of different genres. The lyrics are based on the Wild West, but there's also elements of horror and supernatural. That's funny music. They play death metal and thrash, and they mix in some country western sounds. So sounds like it's not going to work, but they make it work. The album seems to be a little more experimental than their previous album from 2022 called Death Western. There are a few tracks in here which are kind of weird. It might put you off a little if you're looking for a more straightforward thrash and death metal, but if you don't mind the weird stuff, it has some pretty cool songs. There's the opening track, Abilene Grime. Has a little bit of alternative and punk, but also some Slayer-like guitar riffs and elements of modern thrash. I would compare them to the band Power Trip. But then there's the weird stuff like Birdsong of Death, which is like country western punk, and it doesn't have any thrash or heavy metal. Some people might not like that song. There was another weird song called Prayer Lips. This has acoustic guitars and saxophone, but the rest of the album has some pretty good stuff. Maybe the best song is called Waiting on the Reaper. This has some heavy thrash, more of those Slayer-style guitar riffs. The album has grown on me. It's only number 7, but I think it's a pretty decent song. Number 6 is Seven Sisters, Shadow of a Fallen Star Part 2. I just discovered these guys through Hammer Hard Metal Reviews, and they impressed me. This is their 4th album, part of this whole concept series they've been working on. They're a traditional heavy metal band from West London. They formed back in 2014, but they have this cool new wave of British heavy metal influence and some power metal and prog rock thrown in. I really like the twin lead guitars in this album, and this also picks up where part 1 left off, which was released in 2021. I actually didn't listen to it, but that's what I found in my research. It only has 4 tracks, and the last one is this epic 20-minute track. And it feels like progressive metal meets heavy metal. It reminded me a lot of Iron Maiden's Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, that type of vibe. The other songs are solid. They have a faster power metal tempo. Others have chunky guitar riffs. The vocals are really catchy throughout. The album was just released, so I haven't spent a ton of time with it, but I'm keeping it at number 6. And I know it probably should have been number 7, but whatever, I'm sticking it at number 6. Before I continue, if you want to become a member of this channel, first tier is 99 cents. It gives you early access to my videos. Second tier is $2.99. Not only get you early access, but you can request a video topic. There's a join button below or a link in the video description. Coming in number 5 is Sadist with Something to Pierce. This is a progressive death metal band from Italy, another one I discovered as part of my Discovering Metal Band series. And I would say Italy is probably my second favorite country for metal after Greece. They have lots of really great bands as well. This is the band's 10th full-length album. The album has lots of really good songs, like the song Deprived, which has this cool trippy bass guitar and some horror movie keyboards that were reminiscent of those old movies by Dario Argento. There's the track Kill, Devour, Dissect. This has the creepy, quiet singing. It reminded me of the movie The Omen, but lots of complex guitar riffs. And another track called One Shot Closer. It has different twists and turns. It was another one I enjoyed a lot. And another track called The Best Part Is the Brain, which was a little more experimental, features some creepy melodies, and I remember a part of the song that reminded me of the theme to Squid Game, so that was cool. It's a solid band with a solid discography. I did a full retrospective on them on my channel, and you can find that as part of my Discovering Metal series. There's a playlist on my channel you can find. At number 4, I have Cradle of Filth with The Screaming of the Valkyries. This is a very well-known band. They're hard to describe. They're somewhere along the lines of symphonic black metal and somewhere like extreme metal, but they're one of those bands. They seem to be very divisive. I know some people love them, some people don't like them. They have the vocals of Danny Filth, which can be screechy at times, but I feel the music is a little easier to listen to than a typical black metal band. So it depends if you like this kind of thing or not. but I like this album a lot. It has an opening track called To Live Deliciously. It's a very catchy song. It has a type of chorus that will stick in your head. There's a track, The Trinity of Shadows. It has those old school heavy metal guitar riffs and keyboards, and that gives it a fuller sound. Then there was the track Hellebore that had a sound closer to traditional black metal. Then the track Malignant Perfection, and it had these really creepy keyboards, and that just adds to the dark sound of the album. The only negative with this album is that it doesn't have a lot of the female vocals compared to previous albums, but still has some of the female vocals. And I think the album just has a really good replay value. I've been listening to it a lot, and I think the songs hold up very well. Number 3 is Arch Enemy with Blood Dynasty. They are a Swedish death metal band, and they don't need any introduction. This is the 4th album with Alyssa White-Gluz on vocals. The first one featuring a new guitarist, Joey Concepcion, and he stepped in after Jeff Loomis left about 2 years ago. On this album, they're getting back to that aggressive style from their early days, but they're still keeping some of those melodic touches from their recent stuff. There's one track that's totally different from anything they've done before, a cover of a French band called Blaspheme, and it's sung completely in French. I really like that song, and some other standouts for me are the opener, Dream Stealer, and I think that was the lead single as well. It's a solid old school banger with Alyssa. She really kills it on the vocals. But my favorite is probably an album cut, March of the Miscreants. The guitar tone is awesome, and it's just packed with aggression. But I also liked Liars and Thieves, another single, and the album closer. And I really connected with that one. Honestly, this is probably the best album they put out with Alyssa on vocals. That's why I have it at number 3. I want to talk about number 2 and number 1, which will be Judicator's Concord and Warbringer's Wrath and Ruin. Let's see where each one falls. Judicator is an American power metal band I discovered a few years ago with their album, The Majesty of the Cave, that came out in 2022. That album was a mixture of progressive metal and power metal. But on this album, there's still some progressive metal, but they toned it down a little bit and went for more of a power metal sound. But it's the type of power metal for people who might not be big power metal fans. I would say their biggest influence is Blind Guardian, so that's a good reference point. They have their own sound. They're not afraid to experiment. They're not afraid to make songs a little more progressive, and they're not afraid to write lyrics about things that are not necessarily power metal oriented, such as what this album is about, which happens to be the Wild West. So it just came out. I haven't spent a lot of time with it. It's gotten better every time I listen to it. I just did a full review. I don't need to talk too much about the songs, but there are a few songs that have some experimentation, such as saxophone playing. But most of the album is just lots of melodic vocals, lots of guitar riffs, and I recommend you give this band a chance, even if power metal isn't really your thing. The other band I have that's a contender for Album of the Month is Warbringer's Wrath and Ruin. They are an American thrash metal band. They formed in 2004. They're part of the new wave of American thrash that became popular in the early 2000s. It's their 7th album. I think the one thing that makes this a great album is the fact that it's a thrash metal album, but they experiment just a little bit or enough so the songs sound a little more unique as opposed to a typical thrash album. A good reference would be that Destruction album I talked about before, which was just straightforward thrash, and it didn't do anything to make it more original. I think this band knows how to stray a little bit from their formula, but just enough so their songs sound unique. So for example, opening track, The Sword and the Cross, has a little bit of that melodic death metal sound. Then there's the track Neuromancer, which has more of a traditional death metal influence, along with the thrash, of course. There was a song called The Jackhammer, has some awesome drumming and a really cool bass guitar sound that's very prominent throughout the song, and lots of fast and heavy guitar riffs. So it's just a really great thrash metal album. So now it's time for me to make my final verdict for which is number 1 and which is number 2. And it was close. It was actually hard to decide. I went back and forth. But I'm going to put Judicator at number 2 and Warbringer at number 1. I'll be adding a link to a playlist with full reviews of most of the albums I mentioned, making it easier for you to check them out. In the meantime, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing for more rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks again. I'll see you in the next one.